The year is 2026, and Duet Night Abyss has now been out for a couple of months. So what's going on with Duet Night Abyss? How is the game? Well, I was provided with a pretty nice opportunity. I would make a sponsored video for the game, but I asked, would I be allowed to say anything positive or negative? And they said yes. So why don't we push the envelope and see how much they'll really allow? Because I want to make a very honest review on this game, because Duet Night Abyss is a game that I had been kind of tracking and looking over for quite a while before it released. It made the incredibly bold decision to remove all gacha from obtaining characters, which was pretty insane, since the industry is just so heavily going towards that route. And so this game could potentially help the industry with having less gacha games. How has the game done since launch though? I initially played in 1.0 and I had a lot of fun with the game overall. Sure, the game was not perfect. It definitely had a lot of inconsistencies, bugs, and things that it could improve on, but the actual core of what they were trying to do, I saw a lot of potential. However, obviously, I think it needed some more time to cook. So now, a more recent update has come out for the Hwashu region. How has 1.1 been overall? Let's talk overall about the goods and the bads of Duet Night Abyss. Let me start with some of the goods. First of all, I think the game has pretty fun gameplay. It might not be the fastest and smoothest in some ways, but I would definitely say it's incredibly fun just destroying swaths of enemies, almost like some sort of Dynasty Warriors game, just absolutely obliterating so many enemies on screen at the same time with just giant explosions, or maybe some of your teammates using big nukes constantly. Some of the characters are able to kill so many enemies on screen at the same time that it's actually completely crazy, sometimes killing them almost off screen. It's really enjoyable just killing so many enemies. The game isn't really so much about difficulty as it is just the fun of absolute destruction of so many enemies at the same time. I think that the movement sometimes feels pretty good, but at other times it can feel a little bit stiff and slightly jank, especially with some of the helix jump and or some of the air to ground attacks. While that's very fun, let's talk about another element of the game, the graphics. Initially, when the game came out, the graphics were serviceable and fine, but not really anything crazy. However, in the new region, the Hwashu region, they've really upped it a lot. It's starting to look actually really good. And if you look at some of the scenery and how everything looks, the amount of detail, it's actually pretty impressive. Now, I'm not sure how well it runs on everyone's devices, including phones, but it does look very impressive, and it's definitely a giant step up. It's a bit of a shame that they weren't able to have all of that done by the release of the game, because it definitely highlights how good everything can potentially look in the game. Another thing I would like to really talk about in this game is the story. Surprisingly, it's a lot better than I ever would have expected. I normally don't really care that much about stories in many of the games that I stream, especially gacha games, and since this once was a gacha game, I had pretty low expectations. The first part of the story, I wasn't super amazingly impressed by. It was fine, but not really crazy. But once I got to the second part of the story, I was actually very surprised how interesting it was. It felt like it was a lot more dynamic, had a lot more to it. You actually made some decisions that changed what happened in the story somewhat, which was really shocking to me. And also it had some twists that I was genuinely surprised by. It felt a lot more like an actual real story, which was kind of crazy to me because I basically had zero expectations whatsoever. And this also continues in the Hwashu region, which is very cool too. So I think I definitely have to hand it to them that they actually were able to make a surprisingly good story. And along with that, the music. This game's music is very surprisingly good too, because I always go into these kinds of games with not really high expectations, because usually it takes them a long time to really work out all of the issues, and usually some of those things have to do with story and music and animations. But surprisingly, this game was able to do a pretty good job from the start, and then the Hwashu region only really enhanced some of those elements. Now, let's talk about some of the things that I think are a little bit weak in this game. One of the biggest draws to this game is the endless farming and endgame. People play these types of games because they just want to farm nonstop to try and get stronger, get better items, make more upgrades, build more characters. That's some of the biggest enjoyment of the game. It's not really about hardcore difficult fights. It's just about a fun, mindless grind, possibly playing with your friends, which I think is really great too, because more multiplayer player is usually better. However, there are some big issues with this, one of them being the Demon Wedge system. While the system itself is fine, they have some frustrations with either finding the right ones that you're trying to get, and also there's different Demon Wedges for every single element. So you build an electricity type character, oh well, this character needs these types of Demon Wedges. Well, now you're building a Hydro character, well, they need the same Demon Wedges but on a different element, which can be a little bit frustrating sometimes, but it's also understandable. The game is about farming after all. Next, let's talk about the weapons. While the weapons sometimes feel a little bit jank at first, you're able to get these really cool wedges that completely change how they operate, sometimes making them really fun to use. But the issue is that they often are not very strong. The game generally revolves around using skills and ultimates for the maximum amount of damage. How you're killing most of your enemies is by spamming your abilities, not your weapons. So many of the swords, spears, guns, all of those things feel as though the only purpose is to really be a stat stick to buff the damage of your skills rather than be the thing used to do the damage. Now, there is one character that's actually able to utilize some of those weapons, but in general, most of the characters can't, and it definitely needs a huge buff to those weapons so that you actually feel like you're able to really utilize them on all these enemies, because some of them have really fun skill sets or little combos that you can do and you don't feel like you can actually utilize them. Instead, you're just going to spam skills that are going to blow up the entire screen really. And along with this, some of the character balance is definitely off, where some characters feel wildly way stronger than others. Now, one really good benefit to the game is that it's pretty easy to get characters. You can farm for them pretty easily and get copies pretty quickly. And it's also not that hard to get max dupes of a lot of the characters, well, at least the ones that aren't locked behind weekly farming, but the ones that aren't, you're able to max them out pretty damn fast, which I think is a really good strong point of the game. Now, the issue is that some of these characters are very unbalanced. Some characters are definitely just way stronger than others, especially with some of the dupes you're able to get that can almost double or triple how much power they have just by doing a little bit of extra farming on that character, while some characters really just can't live up to that potential. So it'd be really nice to see some of these characters get some of these buffs. And in the Huashu region, I didn't feel as though they gave enough chance for some of these characters to really shine. Many of the characters that were strong before are still strong in this new region. Next, let's talk about the elemental restrictions that happen in the game. They have some fun endgame modes, however, some of it is really locked behind elements where, oh, you need to use Hydro in the theater. You specifically need to use this element because you're doing like 600% more damage. Now, there was a little bit of an issue when the patch first came out where it wasn't working quite as intended, but they fixed it pretty quickly, and so it is a lot more doable without the perfect elements now. However, it is still so wildly different to use the correct element compared to something else. I think having elements be so specifically strong for certain patches is not quite the best way to go about it, and I think it would be a lot better if they balanced it more just around using good team comps or just playing well. However, it is very fun to build up your account in the game. I've had a lot of enjoyment just building the newer characters that have come out and getting their demon wedges, putting on new weapons, etc, etc. It's really enjoyable building the characters, and since you can play as much as you want and there's not some pesky energy system, it's actually very fun just building up each and every character. The newest character, for instance, Fushu, is absolutely crazy. She gives you so much sanity regen, which is the energy system for when you're fighting, that you feel like you have so much energy, you're able to completely just spam and kill everything on the screen non-stop, which is really fun. It's nice that even though newer characters have incredibly strong abilities like this, you can still use so many of the old characters as well and they still handle perfectly fine. So thankfully, it doesn't feel like the game has insane power creep since you're still able to use most of the characters, just as long as they rebalance some of the old ones that never really had a chance to shine. The next thing I want to talk about, which is kind of funny, is there's no pay to win in the game realistically. Sure, you can buy shards to the characters, but you can also just farm them, so there's not really much difference between someone who farmed those shards to the character or bought them. But what's funny is people actually want more things to spend money on. Funnily enough, when the game came out, it didn't really have that much in the shop, so people bought out a bunch of things that want to support the game, and then they couldn't really spend any more money. That was one of the biggest complaints, funnily enough. So in this next region, they added a bunch of more cosmetics. They have another one of those gacha banners that you can use to try and get some of the skins or other little cosmetics, and then they also added a lot more things to the shop. Also nicely, they have a free costume on this update as well, which also happens to be one of my favorite outfits, so I was pretty thankful about that. But it's weird that a game that pretty much needs to survive purely off of cosmetics wouldn't really add that many for players to buy, especially since when a game launches, that's often when people want to spend the most money. In the Huashu region, it was really nice that they added more, but I'm kind of surprised they don't even go overtime and try and make 2 or 3 times the amount of cosmetics every single update, because while the cosmetics are good, a lot of people just want more. Now, let me talk about this next part, and this is one of the most key points that I wanted to make during this video. I believe that there seems to be a strange disconnect between the developers and the players. Now let me explain. What many people play this game for is its fun action and killing tons of enemies and just upgrading your account. That's what a lot of people have fun with in the game. That's why many people really enjoy it. However, this new Huashu region added this giant new area, which looks incredibly good. The graphics are amazingly good, the area looks really nice, there's lots of cool quests and places to go. It's a really well put together region. However, even though it's really well put together, I believe for a lot of the players of this game, that's not exactly the reason that they do play the game. I've seen many players' complaints, and the biggest ones usually come around to, we want more endgame and we want more rebalancing of weapons. Now, let me explain something big about this. The new region might be cool, and it's really fun to go around and see everything. However, the issue with it is that the players want more instanced dungeons to do. Because once you clear that overworld, once you've run around it a bit, you've kind of just finished it, you're done. And it doesn't really take a super long time to be able to do that. But what's so fun about more instanced endgame is you feel like you can constantly play it. You feel like there's so much to upgrade. You feel like there's so many ways to get stronger. Let me just run this place 5 more times for new materials. That's what many of the players truly want. And I believe the Huashu region didn't quite give that to the players. So I can see why some people may be disappointed with that, because even though the game has upgraded in so many ways with this new region, it also hasn't quite answered some of the questions that players had. And I think a lot of players feel like, well, what are they going to be doing? So I would proposition, I believe that the developers should probably put out a roadmap for the game. I think they really need to just show the players that they're listening to certain things and what they're working on. Although it might be bad to promise things that you're not quite going to be able to deliver on, it is incredibly important just for the players to know that you're listening and to look forward to things in the future. If they see that you know that the weapons need to be rebalanced and when you're approximately going to rebalance them, they'll keep on hoping, okay, well, in this patch, it's going to be a really cool one. I'm really excited for that. If you talk about new endgame stuff you're going to add, and when you do, people can be like, oh, in each of these patches, they're adding something that I really want. And I think that's something that they definitely have to do in this new patch. Because I think the Huashu region was definitely a really good step up, and it almost feels like it's kind of the vision that they had for the game rather than the first area, especially with the updated graphics. However, at the same time, I think they're kind of playing catch up, where they're catching up to what they wanted the game to be. However, they haven't quite been able to address the things that people had an issue with 1 patch ago. Even though the update is good, I think they still need 1 to 2 more updates to truly be able to address some of the issues people had with the game. I've actually played a surprisingly large amount offline during the 1.0 patch, where I was grinding mindlessly off stream, sometimes playing with a couple of other friends who are streamers, and I had a really good time with that. I think they want to try and capture more of that feeling by creating more of these grinds that are actually enjoyable. You feel like you're getting progression, but it's also really fun just to play with other people and mess around. So I really hope that Duet Night Abyss is able to capture this feeling and progress even further in the next patch. And I do hope that players give it a chance, because Duet Night Abyss, while some people might have their grievances, I believe that the team is very much trying with the game. I've met many of the developers actually in person, and they seem to be incredibly passionate about the game and really wanting to make a great game. However, I do believe that the game needed a little bit more time to cook, and so I'm totally down to just wait to see what this game will be able to do in the future, because even if the game isn't perfect right now, I think at its core, it has many good features, and it's a lot more difficult to rebuild a game that has a bad core, but everything else is good, rather than a game that has a good core, but the things surrounding it have a lot of issues that need to be ironed out. So I do think that Duet Night Abyss has a lot lot of potential, and I'm definitely willing to give it that time. I do enjoy this game, and I am going to continue playing it, and I really hope the developers are able to give what the players want. If you're interested at all in trying this game, please click the link below. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you next time.